Hi, my name is Jayreid. I'm a psychotherapist in San Francisco, California. And today I want to talk about a belief commonly held by scapegoated children of narcissistic parents that is, if I am not being productive, I am worthless. Today's video continues the series on the beliefs that are commonly held by scapegoated children of narcissistic parents. And last week's video focused on the belief that one is physically disgusting. Today's video is going to focus on the belief that if I am not being productive, I am worthless. And I think crux of this kind of belief that's often adopted by the scapegoated child is that their sense of self-worth for the scapegoated child is dependent on what they do rather than who they are. And I think that's important when this type of, the child is faced with a parent who through the child's eyes really seems to hate the child for who that child is. And if a child's born to a narcissistic parent who needs to find that parent's own sense of worthlessness in the child, the child doesn't have the kind of cognitive abilities at that stage to recognize that. All they know is that the person they're looking to for sort of approval and affirmation seems to sort of just hate them for, in essence, existing. And that's a commonly drawn, and I don't know if it's an inaccurate conclusion for the child in this position, in the sense of how it really feels to be on the receiving end of the narcissistic parents, relocating their own worthlessness in the child. For the child to feel like their parent harbors hatred towards them for who they are at their core, could render them sort of paralyzed, unable to kind of keep going with the kind of life tasks they need to do. Get up in the morning, eat their cereal, get ready for school, do their homework. It could potentially feel so hopeless that it would kind of halt the child's sort of will to go on. What this belief does is sort of shift it and sort of make it into a problem that can ostensibly be solved. Like, it's not who I am that makes mom or dad seemingly hate me. It's that I haven't done something that they expected me to do, let's say. I didn't get an A+. I didn't clean the bathroom as sparklingly as I should have. I didn't unload the dishwasher with as much alacrity as they expected. These are actions that could have been performed, and the sort of implication is that had they performed it, mom or dad wouldn't have been so viciously attacking of them for this supposed transgression. And the sort of, I think, in some ways, ingeniousness of this belief is that it protects the hope that if only they did something otherwise, their parents would treat them with respect and care and kindness. And it sort of preserves the parent as being viable. And that's a hope that needs preservation for a child. If they lose faith in the parent, then they sort of lose faith that there is someone out there to attach to. And that is a outcome that children cannot tolerate. But the consequences going forward for the scapegoated child in this sense is one of sort of having to relentlessly be in the act of doing, whether it's working to excel at school, working to sort of better oneself. It can materialize as reading lots and lots of self-help books, sort of feeling like there's something wrong within, and seeking an answer as to what that is. In essence, always working. And if one is not in the act of working, the sense that can overtake them is the sense of that worthlessness. And I want to offer that sort of dichotomy, that either I'm okay because I'm working or, quote, being productive, or I'm worthless, is actually imposed upon by the narcissistic parent. as we've described in prior videos, a narcissistic parent needs to relocate their own sense of worthlessness into the scapegoated child. And what this kind of belief does is says, okay, I'll take on the mandate that I am worthless, but I will carry with it this contingency that says, well, I can disprove that worthlessness to myself, and maybe implicitly to that parent, although I think they meet the evidence time and again that parent never is satisfied. They may bring home straight A pluses, but it's sort of guaranteed that they're going to get yelled at or disrespected, derided, demeaned at one point or another, because the narcissistic parent needs to continue to find their own worthlessness in this child, and the reasons are sort of a means to that end. But the relentlessness that gets felt by the scapegoated child can feel very relentless, pressure-filled, and can yield a whole bunch of consequences as one kind of leaves their family of origin and gets into the adult world, in the seeking of relief from this sort of mandate to always be on the job, as it were. Oftentimes, some substance abuse can come into the picture, various means of self-soothing or sort of escape from the relentlessness that's so pervasively felt can often be employed. And recovery from having to sort of adopt this type of belief, I think it can be sort of nuanced, because one of the often reactions to, as like say working in therapy, when this belief kind of comes to one's awareness, one of the common reactions may be, well, I'm not going to be productive anymore, or like this has been imposed upon me so strongly and relentlessly that I'm going to sort of eschew my responsibilities and tasks that I'm, say, expected to do at work, whatever it is. It's just too much. And what happens in those understandable efforts at solving or disproving this belief is that it tends to engender the exact feedback that reinforces the belief, because it will often result in others in the person's life sort of having kind of reactions like, hey, what's taking so long with this project at work? Or a friend's asking, why haven't you called back after a few phone calls? And although it may be sort of ostensibly the effort to disprove that it's okay not to be productive, the reactions that occur can serve to reinforce it. And in another way, this type of solution to disconfirming this belief, it can reinforce to oneself that they are sort of worthless, because the oneself may also know that they kind of want to be doing a good job at work, to be kind of responsive to their friends and partners, and to not be doing that, I think sort of causes one to feel like they take a hit in terms of whether they're kind of living in accordance with their sort of best sense of who they are. I think that the outcome to be worked towards is, in essence, recovering one's own goals for oneself and how one wants to be and what one wants to achieve in the world, but for oneself, not as a means to have to stave off the narcissistic parent's hatred, which is kind of how these ambitions had to get hijacked in childhood. That is, I think, sort of easy to say and harder to kind of actuate in the recovery process. But I think that part of the recovery process can include recognizing how one's goals and ambitions had to be sort of leveraged to survive the narcissistic parent's abuse in this way, really respecting the child and what they had to do to kind of get through that. And sort of exposing oneself to the fact that they very much, for their own reasons, have goals and ambitions, things they want to achieve, ways they want to be experienced by others that are meaningful to them and actually serve as a source of pride to them, irrespective of all these sort of really, they're sort of like faux expectations from the narcissistic parent. And I say faux because, in false, because, even if the kid met these sort of expectations, the parent was going to find them to be a failure. So I hope that maybe sheds a little bit of light on this type of belief that can be held by a scapegoated child, and why it is necessary or can be necessary to survive this type of abuse. And also, hopefully, some of the nuance around disconfirming a belief that one must always be productive or is worthless in the process of kind of recovering from a childhood of this type of mistreatment. All right, well, thanks for watching this week, and I look forward to discussing yet another belief that's commonly held by scapegoated children next week, and hope everyone's having a good holiday.